Hey guys, and welcome back to another Iron Will podcast with me, Shane Warner, and
John Chase.
So what this podcast is all about is we are trying to get stories from people that have been through a traumatic experience in their lives and came out a different person.
Yeah, they have all created an iron will. So what is an iron will? A burning determination that cannot be stopped or hindered by anything, willing to do anything to get a desired outcome, extremely resilient. So what we like to say is just keep punching.
Yeah. So sit back and relax, and we're going to start the show. And today we have Dakota Meyer on the podcast with us. And how I have a connection to Dakota is I did his podcast. It was number 29, and it was during the time that it was still called Owning It. And what's your podcast called now, Dakota?
It's called Front Toward the Enemy.
Okay. So if you don't know who Dakota is, I suggest going to listen to the Jocko podcast with Dakota, and you can get to know his story. I want to start off this podcast by asking you where you grew up and the situation you grew up in.
Yeah, man. Listen, I gotta tell you, Shane, it's an honor to be able to come on your podcast, man. Like I remember having you on. I can remember exactly where I was sitting. I remember the whole thing about it, and just watching your progress, man, and watching what you do every day.
Well,
like,
that's
it's incredible, man.
That's what I was gonna say too. Is since doing your podcast, it lit a fire underneath my ass. Like, just being on your podcast and you giving me that opportunity to share my story, I cut out a bunch of people from my life and realized what was important, and I've been on a path ever since, I feel like.
Yeah, no, man, listen, you've been crushing it, so it's awesome. I grew up in a small town in Kentucky. I grew up with my mom, lived with my mom. My mom and dad were divorced, and the guy I call my dad, is actually my adoption dad. And so they divorced, and I would get to go see kind of the typical schedule, seeing my dad on the weekends, every other weekend, and then he would get me every Wednesday. And so I did that until I was probably like, sorry about that, until I was probably like 11 or 12 years old, and then actually it was the fourth grade. So whenever the fourth grade was. One day during the summer, I would always go to my dad's during the summer, and my mom called and said, "Hey, I guess you told my dad, do you want him? He can move in with you." So from that point on, all I knew was living with my dad.
Was your relationship with your mom kind of stressed or what?
I think, I don't have a good relationship with my mom. I don't even look at her as a mom. She's the grandmother of my kids at best.
Mm-hmm.
And, I think she had me so young that I don't even, it was like a kid raising a fucking kid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, so like I did that, and I grew up with lived with my dad, played sports, football, basketball, ran track. So, the typical stuff.
I know you said on the Jocko podcast that you were trying to go to college to play football until you ran across a Marine recruiter.
Yeah. Yeah, I was, look, that's what everybody did, right? And who knows if I could have played anywhere.
Yeah.
Look, first off, I'm not going to try to be one of those, I call them the Uncle Rico guys.
That's right.
That's perfect.
If coach would have put me in.
Yeah. Man, if I'd have went to college, I'd have probably been in the NFL right now,
Yeah.
To be honest, college, if I would have went the college route, I'd have probably been there for a year, and I would have probably just dropped out.
Yeah.
It just wasn't for me. I don't like school. But I Yeah, I played football in high school. I was decent at best, and
What position?
I played running back. I was a running back, and I was
Okay.
a free safety and an outside linebacker. It was nothing for me in a game to play to be nose guard, be on a defensive line, to go back to within a series be an outside linebacker, and then I could be a free safety. It just
Yeah.
yeah. So you just whatever. But I was walking through lunchroom one day, and there was a Marine recruiter sitting in the back, and I was like, I started asking him a lot of different questions, and he was like, sorry, I'm tired today. He was like, he kind of like got tired of my bullshit, and he finally said, what are you gonna do when you get out of high school? And I was like, well, I'm gonna go play football somewhere.
Yeah.
And he was like, well, that's good. He's like, that's good. I think that's what you should do. Because you'd never make it as a Marine.
Marine recruiters.
Yeah. So I was like, you know what? Sign me up today.
Sounds like a challenge, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I was like, sign me up today. And so I did. And I went and signed up.
So that is how you got into the Marines. But I want to shift gears and have you tell me about September of 2010.
Yeah. I was supposed to be going into a valley. So I had a team. It was myself, Lieutenant Johnson, Gunny Kittifick, and Doc Layton. And so we were going into a valley called the Ganjgal Valley. And supposed to go in there and have a meeting with the elders and blah, blah, blah. The same shit, different day.
Yeah.
And, I brought some concerns up on that mission, called some bullshit on some things, and they didn't like it. So they took me out of my team and replaced me with a guy named Gunnery Sergeant Johnson. And, so they left me at the trucks, and they, so that morning we drove in, and I was in a turret, and they went into the valley, and they got ambushed. We were actually set up, so they got ambushed. I decided to
go help.
To go help. So I went in and made a few trips in, and it was 8 hours, and tried to get them out.
And what happened? Like, did you just go in multiple times and try and save everyone, or?
Yeah, I mean, I did. I tried to go in and. My goal was to try to search for them. Like, go in and see if I could find them and help them out. And, I lost radio contact with them on the initial drive in, and I never seen them again until I found them, and they'd all been killed.
Wow.
That's hard to find your teammates like that.
Yeah.
I'm sure. And so I want to talk about another September. And this one, you were in Kentucky and you drove up to a friend's shop. And can you kind of tell me about what happened?
Yeah, I came back from Afghanistan. I got sent home early. I was pissed off. I was, just kind of broken. I mean, I was mean. I was just the piece of shit that, I was your typical guy that Hollywood tries to make veterans out to be.
Yeah.
You take the meanest person and the shittiest person and that was probably Mother Teresa compared to who I was. And I finally just got tired of it, right? Like I knew it was wrong. I knew it was shitty. And yeah, one night I was coming home and I decided that this is it. So I pulled over on the side of the road at one of my buddies' shops who I actually went to school with. And
why did you stop there?
Because I knew that I didn't want my family looking for me, right?
Yeah.
And I knew that he would be there at 8 a.m. the next morning or 6, 7 a.m. when he came in. And so I was like, well, they can just, at least, and then he'll know who I am. So it's not this whole big ordeal. It's not like trying to identify who I am and all this and that.
Mm-hmm. He probably knew your car and stuff.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I mean, he would have pulled in there and knew who it was before he even opened the door.
Yeah.
And so that was it, right? So I pulled in there and I always kept a pistol in my I was a trailblazer. I pulled the pistol out and stuck it to my head and squeezed the trigger, and it just went click. And somebody had unloaded the gun. And
do you have an idea of who?
I do, but I think I know. I don't know for sure. I don't. So you just never know.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that was that, and then
Wow.
I kind of looked at myself and I'm like, well, if I'm going to keep living life this way, then rack it round back and go ahead and get this over with.
Yeah.
At least I do it on my terms. And but I said if I put the vehicle in drive, then I'm never looking back.
And that is kind of like your story when you joined the Marines. Like you used that as a challenge.
Yeah. I mean, it was like, look, here's, if we go past this point, here's the standard.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I did that. And then, I put it in drive and drove off. And so I went home and I never looked back.
Ever since that day, you've tried to live up to a standard.
Yeah. A standard that's to be better than I was yesterday.
Yep.
That's awesome.
And I want to ask you about having a beer with President Obama. And that was in September also, right?
Yeah, that was...
So
it's like his reunion every September. He has something.
Yeah. Is that how they do the Medal of Honor? Is trying make it on the anniversary day or what?
No, just coincidence. September is just a shitty month.
Yeah.
I got a call and, the president's speechwriter, I was supposed to be going out there to get the Medal of Honor. And the president's speechwriter was like, is there anything else you'd like to add? And I said, well, let the president know that I'll be in town for a week. If he's bored, hit me up and I'll grab a beer with him. And he was like, do you really want me to tell him that? And I go, yeah, of course.
Hell yeah.
What's he gonna say?
Mm-hmm.
What's he gonna say? What's he gonna say? No. So it was crazy. Like I was giving this speech. I was actually at 8th and I, which is the oldest piece of the Marine Corps. It's in D.C. It's where they do all the ceremonies and the silent drill team trainings and all that.
Mm-hmm.
And I was actually giving a speech out there, and my phone rings. A girl who was working with me picks it up, and she goes, "Hey, you got to take this call." So I got to walk off, out from talking. I take the call, and I'm drunk, so just know I'm drunk already. And it was the president's aide, and they go, "Hey, be here at 5:00. The president wants to have a beer with you."
That's awesome.
And I'm like, okay. They're like, what kind of beer do you like? I said, Bud Light. They go, well, we're not having Bud Light. It's fun.
It's too cheap.
So we go over there, and this girl, I feel so far. Her name's Jeanette, and I feel so bad for what she had to go through trying to keep me together. And we go over there, and she's trying to make me drink water, sober up. She's like, gosh, I hope they don't give you a breathalyzer before you walk in, because you'd never get in.
Yeah.
And so I get in and I go in there, and me and President drank a beer in the Oval in the Rose Garden.
That's awesome.
Wow.
Yeah, so that was it.
Yeah.
Okay. You're CEO of a few different companies, and one being Own the Dash. Can you tell me where that name came from? Yeah,
I probably my the company I have that's near and dear to my heart is On the Dash. It's it's because it's about inspiring people. I read this poem one time that made so much sense to me, especially when you watch so many people, the line of work that I do. I mean, you watch people die all the time.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just you see a lot of end of life, right? And it's and it sounds morbid a little bit, but it's a truth, right? It's let's all face reality.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing that's going to be left of us when we die is a tombstone. And Linda Ellis wrote this poem talking about how she's at a funeral of a friend, and on your tombstone you got first the date that you were born, and then the day you died. And it's kind of significant because those two are literally, they're kind of like the bookends.
Yeah. The most insignificant.
They're the two most insignificant